This video is sponsored by Raycon. Captain Jack Horner felt the weight of the entire operation over his shoulders as he squinted through his Norden bombsight, searching for the Daimler-Puch aircraft plant below. Behind him, over 100 B-24 Liberators flew in formation, bomb bays open, waiting for him to release his bombs so they could do the same. But Horner was finding it near impossible to concentrate as swarms of Luftwaffe fighters tore through bombers left and right, engines screaming as they slashed at the formation. Explosions shuddered the air, and the maddening sound of twisting metal rang through the air. Out of nowhere, a thick cumulus cloud rolled over the target, covering it completely. Horner adjusted for an offset bomb run, recalculating with tense precision as sweat ran down his face. And that's when he saw them, below, directly in his bomb path, a group of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses drifting unknowingly into his crosshairs. Seconds ticked by as his thumb hovered over the release trigger. If he dropped now, he would likely hit his target, but hundreds of bombs would rain down on those friendly bombers. Horner's voice cracked through the intercom, quote, "Abort, abort." The formation surged forward, bombs still locked in their bays. In the lead plane, Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth A. Kuhl's jaw tightened. They had lost their chance. Turning back meant threading through the worst flak storms of World War II and the German fighters all over again. But the vulgar vultures did not fail. He would have to improvise. When the crews of the vulgar vultures took to the skies, communication was paramount. Every command through their headsets had to cut through the deafening roar of engines and the chaos of battle. Mishearing a word, or missing one altogether, could spell disaster for the entire formation. We at Dark Skies understand the importance of crystal clear sound, which is why we've become avid users of Raycon's everyday earbuds. Their powerful active noise cancellation technology cuts through distractions, just like those B-24 gunners had to focus amid the cacophony of aerial combat. When we are analyzing intricate details of aerial warfare or listening to rare veteran interviews, this feature lets us block out the world and focus on what matters, the historical truth. What's more, Raycon offers a range of vibrant color options. Where World War II squadrons would express themselves by giving their aircraft unique custom paint jobs, you too can let your personality shine through by choosing from lavender, forest green, carbon black, and our personal favorite, royal blue. At half the price of other premium brands, there's no excuse not to grab a pair. And with Raycon's 30-day happiness guarantee, you can always abort the mission if you're not satisfied, so don't hesitate. Click the link in the description below, or go to buyraycon.com/darkskies to get 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds. Brought to you by Raycon. Activated on July 8, 1943, at Clovis Army Air Base in New Mexico, the 455th Bomb Group started with no planes, no combat experience, just orders and ambition. Under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth A. Kuhl, a no-nonsense veteran of Europe and North Africa, the group began its transformation. Kuhl was a strict taskmaster, barking orders from cockpits and flight lines, drilling his crews into precision machines. Formation flying became an obsession for Kuhl. He believed in tight, seamless, and unwavering formation, even when some rookie pilots struggled to keep their lumbering bombers in line. One of them, Lieutenant John Smidle of the 743rd Bomb Squadron, flew a B-24 he called the Beast. The name fit. Every mission felt like a fistfight. Smidle later reflected on what it was like to tame the beast. Quote, "All limbs were in motion at one time, left arm hauling and twisting, right hand sawing the throttle, feet jamming the rudder back and forth, mouth spouting curses, and oh yes, the sweat pounding off my forehead and into my eyes." But it wasn't just raw skill and sweat that carried Smidle and others through their missions. It was the relentless drilling of emergency procedures. Smidle remembered one particular maneuver, an escape tactic drilled into them during training, a hard diving turn at full throttle to shake attacking fighters and dive below the flak zone. He recalled, quote, "The more we flew, the more humble we became. Only pride I have is that after a year of struggle, I finally learned to master it and brought it to heel." By autumn 1943, the 455th had moved from the harsh deserts of New Mexico and Florida to Langley Field, Virginia. The planes had changed too. 64 factory-fresh B-24H Liberators now sat on the flight line. Every man knew what awaited them in the skies over Europe. Flak exploding like black flowers, Luftwaffe fighters diving with tracer rounds streaming from their guns, friends spiraling down in burning wreckage. Still, they raced to see who climbed into their Liberator first. Each bomber carried a crew of 10, including a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, and 6 gunners, a small team that would face battle together. When the 455th Bomb Group finally departed American soil, they left as one fierce and polished unit. But readiness only goes so far in war. No amount of training could prepare them for what was waiting over Stare. At Langley Field, the men of the 455th Bomb Group made final preparations for war. Over 2,000 officers and enlisted men, including nearly 1,000 aircrew, were ready. In December 1943, the group split in two. One echelon would fly their B-24 Liberators across the Atlantic, while the other traveled by troop ship. Somewhere along the way, they adopted a name, the Vulgar Vultures. No one knew exactly where it started, but somehow they got Walt Disney Studios to design their emblem, a sweating buzzard clutching a demolition bomb. The patch was stitched onto every flight jacket. By spring, operations had begun, and on April 2, 1944, the moment arrived. The weather forecast promised clear skies over Austria. The target was the Daimler-Puch airfield factory in Stare. Lieutenant General Nathan Twining declared it the 15th Air Force's largest mission yet, a staggering 530 bombers. 430 would hit Stare directly. 98 more would target Yugoslavian marshalling yards as a diversion. The timing was everything. The slower B-17 Flying Fortresses would launch first, bomb Stare, and clear the airspace. The B-24 Liberators would follow, striking moments later. Any miscalculation would mean disaster. More than 150 P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings would provide cover, cycling through rendezvous points to ensure the bombers were never left unprotected. Additional fighters would intercept at the most dangerous stretches, the Yugoslavian coastline and the final bomb run over Stare. At San Giovanni, Colonel Kenneth A. Coole's operations staff worked late into the night, crafting mission number 18's orders, takeoff times, weather reports, radio frequencies, bomb payloads, fuel reserves, and ammunition loads. Before dawn on April 2nd, crews were shaken awake. They dressed in heavy flight suits, wolfed down breakfast, and filed into the briefing tent. When Colonel Coole stepped forward, the room tensed. Sternly, he started, quote, "The 455th will lead the Liberator groups into Stare. This one's for me." The men smiled. They knew the odds of success drastically improved when the old man took the lead. The early morning air filled with the metallic whine of spinning propellers. Crews climbed aboard their bombers, the silhouettes of the B-24s looming against the first hint of dawn. The largest bombing mission in the history of the 15th Air Force was underway, and the Vulgar Vultures were leading the charge. The Germans knew they were coming. American bombers had a reputation for sloppy radio discipline, and this morning was no different. Luftwaffe intelligence officers picked up transmissions, piecing together the composition, route, and timing of the incoming raid. Radar operators tracked the slow-moving clouds of bombers rising over the Adriatic. From their headquarters in Braunschweig, Jagdkorps 1 coordinated the response. Alerts went out across southern Germany and Austria. The men of Jagddivision 7, based near Munich, rushed to their fighters. From Wiesbaden, the battle-hardened Africa pilots of 2nd Gruppe Jagdgeschwader 27 readied their Messerschmitt Me-109 G6 interceptors. At Canino, the men of 2nd Gruppe Jagdgeschwader 77, the Ace of Hearts, climbed into cockpits. And from Wels, Austria, the heavy fighters of 2nd Gruppe Gestorgeschwader 1, flying twin-engined Me-110 G2s, prepared to launch. By mid-morning, 374 German interceptors were airborne, circling above Austria, waiting for the Americans to arrive. But fighters weren't the only threat. Below, the city of Stare bristled with more than 100 heavy anti-aircraft guns, 88mm and 128mm flak cannons, manned by veterans of the 24th Flak Division. The men were famous for their pinpoint precision, and they were ready to turn the sky black. The Vulgar Vultures pressed northward through clear skies. At 10:20 a.m., the bombers crossed into Yugoslavia. 2 B-24s dropped out with mechanical failures, leaving 32 Liberators to press on. The first enemy contact came 10 minutes later over Novo Mesto. The radio screamed, quote, "Fighters, 7 o'clock, high. 7 Messerschmitt Me-109s peeled in from the right flank. Major Horace Lanford, flying as Lieutenant Colonel Kenneth Coole's co-pilot, watched them bank hard and line up for an attack run straight at the lead formation. Lanford immediately asked for support, quote, "Red Dog 1, this is Lodge Cup 23. We are under attack by 7 Me-109s and request assistance." The reply came with a southern drawl, but the fighter pilot didn't sound too enthusiastic, saying, quote, "Well, we're kind of tied up ourselves right now, but we'll send someone up as soon as we can." A lone P-38 Lightning appeared moments later. The solo fighter weaved through the clouds, engaging one German fighter and then another without showing the least concern for its own well-being. The stunt worked, and the Messerschmitt scattered momentarily. But when the Germans realized the bombers had virtually no fighter support, they returned. Messerschmitt Me-109s, Focke-Wulf FW-190s, and twin-engined Me-110s, armed with rockets and heavy cannons. They attacked from every angle, pressing into the formation with relentless aggression. A gunner screamed, quote, "Fighters low." Tracers lit up the sky, and then the first bomber fell. It was double trouble, a B-24 from the 742nd Bomb Squadron, flown today by 2nd Lieutenant John H. Powers Jr. and his crew from the 740th. An Me-109 raked Double Trouble's left wing with cannon fire. Flames erupted across the engine nacelle, smoke pouring back into the slipstream. The bomber staggered, wobbled, and broke formation. From nearby cockpits, horrified airmen watched 5 parachutes blossom in the thin blue sky. 5 men had made it out, but the other 5 went down with the wreck. There was no time to mourn. The Luftwaffe fighters regrouped and came again. To make matters worse, the bombers were not entering the city of Steyr. Flak began to burst all around them, black puffs of smoke punching holes through aluminum skins, shredding control cables, and ripping into flesh. At 11:15 a.m., First Lieutenant Willis J. Pardo's Shoo Baby turned away from the formation, its number 4 engine shredded by enemy gunfire. Smoke trailed behind the crippled B-24 as it fell behind the group. Alone and vulnerable, the bomber became a prime target for every German fighter prowling the sky. For over 30 agonizing minutes, Shoo Baby was pursued relentlessly and suffered one attack after another. The gunners fired until their .50 caliber ammunition ran dry. Pardo had no choice. He ordered his crew to jump. Parachutes opened in the thin air. 5 men were captured by German forces. The remaining crew, battered and desperate, evaded capture with the help of Yugoslav partisans. A month later, they stumbled back into San Giovanni, gaunt and exhausted, but alive. Minutes later, another bomber fell. First Lieutenant Clyde P. Brunson's Gremlin's Gripe of the 743rd Bomb Squadron dropped out of formation. Flight Officer Richard J. Haney, flying nearby, saw the damage unfold in real time. Flames curling over the left wing, smoke pouring from the engine, the rudder barely holding. The bomber started a slow descending turn to the right. 2 parachutes popped open against the backdrop of the chaos. Then came the explosion. A fireball swallowed Gremlin's Gripe, and Haney turned away. From the nose of Lieutenant Colonel Coole's lead B-24, Group Bombardier Jack Horner stared through his Norden bombsight, trying to block out the chaos outside his glass bubble. He knew his fellow airmen were being taken down from all directions, but he had to focus on finding his target. The entire operation hinged on it. Yet when several U.S. bombers wandered into his sights, he took a deep breath and called for everyone to abort the operation. Coole felt a sharp sting. Frustration. Had it all been for nothing? If he ordered to turn back for another pass, he knew at least a dozen more bombers would be taken out of the sky. Then he remembered a detail from the briefing. The Steyr Weltslagerwerke ball bearing plant was just a minute away. It was not a primary target, but in this dire situation, it would make for a great replacement target. In just seconds, the factory complex of Steyr Weltslagerwerke appeared in Horner's crosshairs. He took a breath, held it, and released the bombs. The Liberators followed suit. Nearly 2,300 bombs rained down on the ball-bearing plant. A dense column of smoke billowed into the air as secondary explosions tore through machine shops and assembly lines. But the Germans weren't finished. As the formation turned away from Steyr, the Luftwaffe struck again. At 11:45 a.m., enemy fire slammed into First Lieutenant Roy R. Cheeseman's Tallahassee Lassie. Flames engulfed the bomb bay and waist gunner positions as the bomber fell out of formation. Witnesses saw 4 men escape the doomed aircraft before it vanished below the clouds. German patrols later recovered 6 charred bodies from the crash site. For those bombers still aloft, the escape route was far from safe. Messerschmitt Me-109s and Focke-Wulf FW-190s continued to hound the withdrawing formation, picking off stragglers whenever possible. First Lieutenant William A. Arnold's Turbo Colossus of the 743rd Bomb Squadron was among those caught in the chaos. As enemy fighters closed in, Technical Sergeant Roland R. Keith, manning the top turret, fired burst after burst from his twin 50 caliber machine guns. He recalled, quote, "A fighter came within about 50 yards of us. Pete sent him down on fire." But then came payback. Enemy fire shredded Turbo Colossus's number 4 engine and damaged number 2. The bomber shuddered violently, losing altitude and falling behind the main formation. Co-pilot 2nd Lieutenant Richard Dusty Duscombe managed to extinguish the engine fire, but their problems were far from over. The Alps loomed ahead, and the bomber was too heavy to make the crossing. The sluggish bomber was about to reach the mountains, but it was still too low. Arnold made the call. All remaining bombs were jettisoned. Waist guns were unbolted and shoved out into the void. Flak vests followed. Even one flyer's parachute was sacrificed. The bomber climbed sluggishly. It cleared the mountains by just a couple dozen feet. 6.5 hours after takeoff, Turbo Colossus landed hard at San Giovanni. The wheels screeched, the fuselage groaned, but they made it. As the engines wound down, some of the crew dropped to their knees and kissed the ground. The cost of the mission was steep. Over 40 crewmen were lost that day. Group Intelligence Officer Major Alvin E. Coons reported that the group's gunners had destroyed 27 enemy fighters, and 17 more claimed as probables. The ball bearing factory had been decimated, with over 90% of the complex left out of operation. Once again, against all odds, the vulgar vultures had delivered. An enthusiastic dark sky salute to Raycon for flying alongside us today. You too can take your audio experiences to new heights with their everyday earbuds, delivering premium clarity when you need it most. And remember, you can get 20% off by clicking the link in the description below or visiting buyraycon.com/darkskies.